Hey guys, Bartel's Bookshelf here. I've been gone a little bit. Sorry about that, but I went on a big birthday trip to San Jose and kind of the surrounding Bay Area. Obviously, I'm back in Foster, but Monday through Wednesday, I went with my friends Laura and Nakia on a little birthday bookstore crawl through San Jose, in that kind of surrounding area. Because Nakia and I both share March birthdays. Laura doesn't have a March birthday, but we come as a group, so. We all, we tend to do this every year. We have a big birthday trip. And this time we decided to explore the San Jose area. It was a lot of fun. We went to a lot of really cool and interesting places. On the first day, actually, we went to the Winchester Mystery House, which I haven't been to since I was like, I don't know, 15, something like that. So I didn't remember much about it, but it was really interesting. It's a fascinating house with a lot of strange architecture and a really interesting history. Don't know if I necessarily believe all of the supernatural stuff that's associated with it, but it is a really interesting trip. They didn't allow video inside, obviously, but I have some pictures here that you can see, just running through some of those so you can get an idea of what it's like. It's a really old, interesting, crazy mansion. And then over the next 2 days, we went to a few bookstores. We went to this big Barnes and Noble. Although I only bought a blind book from there, which I'll be talking about, so you'll see that soon. And then we went to a place called Recycle Books, which, man, this place was dangerous. I mean, you can see from some of the footage here, this place was massive, huge, piles of books everywhere, and tons of vintage stuff. That again, that was what really surprised me, is that they had so many vintage things and a lot of stuff that I was looking for, which I'll be getting into. Um, and like they even had a pretty sizable horror section. But yeah, their sci-fi and fantasy section was crazy, and they actually even had I don't think I got any footage of it, but they got a vintage shelf full of vintage paperbacks and stuff. But this was stuff that was more on the expensive side, stuff that they would sell online. And I was really frustrated because they had some things that I really wanted, including the two prisoner novelizations that I don't have. But they were like $18, $20, so there was no way I'm paying that much for a paperback, and I would be paying about that much online anyway, so there's really no point. But that place was definitely my favorite. There was a second location for recycle books that we went to that was near the first one. But this one I didn't like as. I mean, it was a good store. Don't get me wrong. It just didn't appeal to me as much as the other one because I think the other location was more kind of overstock and vintage stuff, whereas this store kind of felt like more of a flagship store in the sense that there was more of a focus on like newer material. It was a little bit more like organized in the sense that there were like sections for like employee recommendations and things like that. But it was still really cool. We went to there was a local library, like a store that's run by the local library where they sell like old library books, and I got a few really cool paperbacks from there, including one that I'll open the video with. We went to this place called Lee's Favorite Books, which had a mix of new and used books. That place is pretty cool. So yeah, we went to a lot of really cool places. We stayed at this really nice Hilton hotel, thanks to Laura's cousin. So thank you, Court, for that. That was very awesome of you. It was this really cool hotel. It was like 9 floors, and it had this interesting kind of open air vibe to it. You had a continental breakfast where they had omelets made to order for you, and we ate at the restaurant there. They had a restaurant in the hotel. We ate there on the second night, and I got these really interesting chicken tacos that they had shells that were made of naan bread. So that was really interesting. Oh, and I also forgot to mention I took them to B Street Books here in Foster because on Wednesday we had made the decision like since it's only about 40 minutes from Foster, I'll just take them to B Street Books and they'll drop me off here with Aaron, and I'll go home with Aaron on the weekend. So that's what I did. So yeah, I took them to B Street Books. Didn't find as much as I did last time, but again, they had their usual surplus of vintage material, which was fun to look through. So yeah, it was a really fun trip. Thank you, Laura and Nakia, for taking me on it. Thank you, especially Nakia, for driving. That was a big, a big help. And yeah, it's always more fun looking at books with other like-minded bookish people. So thank you guys very much for this trip. It was great. Here's to next year. Can't wait to see where we go again. Hey guys, sorry, editing here. And I just I'm back home obviously, and I just realized I totally forgot to mention two things that John and Nakia did for me. So for those of you who don't know, Nakia's boyfriend John is an author, an indie author, and he also runs a live stream channel where he streams games called JP Edgar Author. I'll link to it in the description. And he had a giveaway recently, and I ended up winning, and he gave me his entire trilogy of books, which I want to show to you. He actually personalized them for me. This is the Bloodlines of Atmos series. This is the first book, the story of Jace, Sanctuary. And these are all personalized for me with little drawings of Woody in each one. Here's the second book, Savior. And here's the third book, Redemption. So yeah, that was really cool of you, John. Thank you. I'll make sure to tag you and leave all the author stuff in the description. And then because it's my birthday coming up, the 25th, Nakia actually, she's gotten into bookbinding recently, and she made me this custom-made copy of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. She did everything, all the leather work, all of the vinyl, the stickers or whatever you call those, all of that, the little corner things. And she even did all of that. She printed this out with all the original illustrations and everything. She printed this out and made this for me. Like, I can't believe that. That is such a nice gift. Like, and there's even custom end papers. I mean, Nakia, that is just an amazing gift. Thank you so much for that. You're the best. I can't believe that. That's amazing. So I just wanted to quickly put that in there just to let you guys know, like, to give proper credit, check all these people out. They're amazing people. They're my friends for a reason, So yeah, but yeah, we're gonna get onto the haul, I promise. But yeah, so I have a lot of books to get through, so I'm not gonna spend super long on each book. So I want to get through this kind of quickly. But yeah, great trip. Let's get into the haul. The main thing that I really wanted to talk about, that I was shocked to find this. This was at that library sale. It's City by Clifford D. Samac. I mentioned this recently. I had another copy of this that I got from half price for like $10, but it was like frayed at the edges. It was really beat up. I didn't expect to find another copy out in the wild, especially not so soon. But this is Michael K. Vaughan's favorite science fiction novel. He just made a video about it recently that I'll link in the description. And Sean D. Standfast is doing a read-along this month, which I didn't know about. I just have been wanting to read this book for a long time. And I was reading my old copy. When we went to this library store, I found this really nice. This is the same edition that I was reading with the final story epilogue, but this is like incredibly, I mean, for how old it is and for how rare this is to find, it's like pretty much flawless. I mean, there's no cracks in the spines or anything. There's like some scuffs and things like that, but I paid 50 cents for this. All the paperbacks in this library store were 50 cents. So I came up with a bag full of books for about $4.50. And yeah, 50 cents for this when I paid $10 for the one at half price. And this is in way nicer condition than that one. I mean, I could not believe that. That is like one of the best finds that I've had on one of these trips. And that is why I love going on these trips and just exploring, because you never know what you'll find. But yeah, City, a very seminal science fiction novel. I've got about 40 pages left in it, and I'm going to make a separate video on it once I finish, but it's definitely a deserved classic. I can see why people love it so much, but I'll talk more about that in the future. Oh, now, where do I start? I'll just grab a pile and I'll just talk about a bunch of stuff. So, next I have Earth Abides by George R. Stewart. Again, this is a very famous post-apocalyptic novel, published in the 40s, I believe. Yeah, 1949. And this is a very influential book, post-apocalyptic book. Takes, from what I understand, takes somewhat of a more philosophical view of the apocalypse and of the extinction of humanity. Again, Michael K. Vaughan highly recommends this novel. It's one of his favorites, and I know a ton of other people love this book as well. So I will definitely be checking that out soon. I had a copy that I checked out from the library, but I had to return it. So when I found this like pocketbooks edition, I was just like, why not? I've been meaning to read it for a long time. I love mass market paperbacks. Why not? Next, I have The Businessman by Thomas M. Dish. Thomas M. Dish obviously was a very famous sci-fi writer, another very famous sci-fi writer, but in the sort of 80s, he went on he kind of moved away from science fiction and wrote more like horror influenced stuff. This is the part of that sort of cycle that he did. This is The Businessman. I have a copy of the MD, but not this one. And again, I got this from that library sale, and I mean, this is like mint condition. I couldn't believe the quality of the paperbacks there. Not everything they had was like worth, getting, obviously. A lot of like sort of boomer type stuff, just like bestseller, just boring type of stuff. But they did have a pretty sizable collection of paperbacks, and this was one of them. So, yeah, very much look forward to digging into that. I want to read more Thomas M. Dish. I'm currently in the middle of his Prisoner novelization, which I'm enjoying. But again, I'll talk more about that once I finish. And these were three books that I was incredibly excited to find at Recycle Books. These are like up to upwards of like $9 to $20 online, depending on which ones you get. And I only found out about this recently. This is a Hospital Station by James White. Again, famous sci-fi author. This was published in the '60s, I believe. Yeah, 1962. And I only found out about this recently from an article on Reactor. But this is part of a long series called Sector 7, I believe it's called. That is about it's basically a mix of sci-fi and sort of medical drama, where it takes place on a hospital station. And a big part of sort of the conflict of the series is how do you deal with medical care of all of these alien species when you're unfamiliar with their biology, you don't have all the right equipment, that type of thing. It sounded really interesting, but the individual volumes were kind of hard to find, especially the Del Rey editions, which I really wanted. This is Valentine, so it's not exactly um, it's not my favorite cover, but I'm happy to just be able to read the book for 2.99. I mean that's crazy. So I was really happy to find that, and I got the first three. They were kind of written in trilogies, I believe, like loose trilogies. But the series went on for a long time. But I got the second book, which is Star Surgeon. Again, this is Valentine. Yeah, the fight to save a man-made marvel in space. God, I love that. I love these old covers. And then this was one that I was able to find that's a Del Rey edition. This is the third book, Major Operation. You can see why I wanted the Del Rey editions from the '80s. They have much more interesting cover art, in my opinion. The sector general staff was used to big problems, but could they handle a 900-mile-long carpet of flesh? So yeah, you see, like, so each story is almost like a problem-solving thing. We're understaffed, we don't have the right equipment, we don't understand all of this alien physiology. How do you take care of medical care in that situation? That sounded really interesting to me, and I'm surprised that hasn't been done more in science fiction, at least not to my knowledge. So very much looking forward to digging into those. Talking about sort of things that I'm that I have sort of a hyper focus on. I found this World of Darkness novel, On a Darkling Plain by Richard Lee Byers. This is again a World of Darkness novel, part of that whole Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse thing. And if you watched my Underworld review, which more of you should watch because didn't get a lot of views, but I reviewed the Underworld novelization, you should watch that. I talked about how much I love that whole World of Darkness vibe and atmosphere, that '90s goth punk thing. So I'm kind of on a mission to collect and eventually read all of the World of Darkness fiction. This specifically was made for the Vampire Eternal Struggle collectible card game. They did that a lot back in the '90s. They had one for Werewolf as well called Rage, and I have a couple novels from that. One of which I've read called Breathe Deeply, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, anytime I find some World of Darkness, White Wolf type stuff, I always grab it. They also had an imprint called Borealis, where they published a lot of sort of a mix of modern and classic, sort of dark fantasy type stuff, which again is my vibe. So yeah, eventually I would love to collect all of the novels and things that they published. So yeah, I was really happy to find that. This is another one that I found at the library sale. This is The Incredible Hulk: What Savage Beast by Peter David. Of course, if you watched my earlier Christmas video where I read the Hulk novelization, I love the Hulk. I always have. Peter David wrote for the Hulk for like 11 or 12 years, and I think he still writes the occasional Hulk stories. I think he wrote some of the newer Maestro stuff, I believe. Um, so yeah, and I really enjoyed Peter David's novelization of the film. So I thought it would be interesting to see what he would do when he's not kind of beholden to a movie script, especially because he's so familiar with the character. I believe this is kind of it's sort of an overview of the Professor Hulk era, I believe. I could be wrong, but it sounds a lot like it. Again, I'm not going to like go into detail with all these. I'm not going to read the back or anything because that'll we'll be here forever. But yeah, so I love the Hulk. Wanted to see how Peter David would do, and again, 50 cents. You can't pass that up for 50 cents. Next, we have another vintage sci-fi classic that I've been meaning to read. This is The Man Who Folded Himself by David Gerald. This is a very famous sort of time travel, sort of a multi-dimensional story about a guy who is inherits this belt that allows him to travel through time and into different dimensions and stuff. And he ends up meeting a bunch of different variations of himself. David Gerald is a very famous sci-fi author. I've mentioned before he worked on Star Trek. He wrote The Trouble with Tribbles, and he's written a few famous sci-fi stories in his own right. Um, this is one that a lot of people love that I've really been wanting to read for a long time. $3 at a recycle book, so why not? And yeah, again, that cover art, love it. All right, and the next pile here, the first one we have is The Beasts of Barakai by Mickey Zucker Reichert. Um, this was one that I just found totally randomly at B Street Books. I've never heard of this author, never heard of this series, but it sounded really, really interesting. It's about a grad student who gets led into a world of shapeshifters where he ends up killing a rabbit for food, but he doesn't know that in this world all animals are shapeshifters, so he gets convicted of, murder and cannibalism and stuff. And he gets rescued by some sort of a resistor, sort of rebels, shapeshifter rebels. I think there's only 2 volumes in this series, but again, like the premise sounded really intriguing. Never heard of this author, never heard of this series, and I always enjoy taking a gamble on this stuff, especially because everything at B Street Books is like $4. So yeah, I don't know. I hope that's good. I like the cover, so we'll see what that's like. Next, I have Don't Laugh. I have Stolen by Kelly Armstrong. This is the second book in the Women of the Otherworld series. So I got this because I love werewolves. This series focuses on the last female werewolf, I believe. What's her name? Elena Michaels. And the first book is Bitten, and I've had that book for ages, and I've just never had a chance to read it. But I think this is one of the ones I found at the library. So I was like, I have the first book. I've been meaning to read it. I might as well check it out. I know a lot of people have kind of mixed feelings on these books. Some people love them, some people hate them. I'm generally not really into the whole kind of they're urban fantasy, but they're kind of leaning more into the paranormal romance, at least as far as I understand it. But like stuff like the Anita Blake series. Like it's trashy, but it's fun. So if it's anything like that, I'm sure I'll enjoy it, especially since it focuses around a werewolf. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what that's like. They also made a TV show in like 2015 or something like that a lot of people actually thought was better than the books, or at least some of the videos I watched said that. But we'll see. We'll see how these are. Werewolves, urban fantasy. We'll see. Don't know. I'm trying not to judge books by their covers these days, trying to be more open. This is another one I got at the library sale. I don't even, that just sounded bizarre. This is Top Dog by Jerry J. Carroll. You can see that cover art there. I don't even know how to describe this. So it's about a guy. He's a high-powered executive who like wakes up one day as a dog. He wakes up as a dog, and he wakes up in sort of like this magical world, and it's all about like kind of exploring like good and evil and like what kind of person he wants to be. And it just sounded really strange and bizarre and sort of a fairy tale-ish in a way, but with like a heavy dose of like satire. So yeah, I don't know, I've never heard of this author either, so we'll see. I have no idea. We'll see what it's like. This is one of the ones I got at Lee's Favorite Books. This was a trilogy. I just grabbed these because these sounded interesting and they were cheap. So I got the trilogy, The Troy Game by Sarah Douglas. This is the first book, Hades' Daughter. So this is sort of a fantasy kind of retelling of Theseus and the Minotaur, from what I understand, where it's about kind of the Minotaur thing, bringing the virgins and stuff and the women and all that stuff. The sacrifices to the Minotaur becomes like a yearly sort of game or a competition type thing, as far as I understand it. So yeah, it's sort of a weird mix of like fantasy and like maybe a bit of like futuristic like sci-fi. I'm not sure, but it looked really interesting. I think I have one of Sarah Douglas's other books. She's an Australian writer, or she was. I think she died unfortunately recently. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It just seemed interesting, and I mean, I like the cover art for obvious reasons. So we'll see what that's like. Again, a lot of these were kind of just picked up on a whim because the whole point of this trip was to blow a bag, So if it was cheap and it sounded interesting, I grabbed it. This is the second book, God's Concubine. And then this is the third book, Dark Watch Rising. Big stag there. Is that a stag? Nakia, you'll have to correct me. So yeah, we'll see what those are like. They're pretty big fantasy chonkers, but I don't know. We'll see. Something about them intrigued me. So this is another one I got from the library. This is one of the few non-fantasy or sci-fi books I got. This is Live Flesh by Ruth Rendell. I don't know how you pronounce it. Ruth Rendell was a very, very, very well regarded British mystery and crime author. I've read a few of her books that I really, really enjoyed, including A Judgment in Stone, which is probably my favorite of hers so far. She also wrote the Inspector Wexford series, which I haven't read, but the first book is From Dune with Death. Um, and she also wrote novels under the Barbara Vine pseudonym, which were kind of more psychological and weird. I haven't read any of those yet, but I saw the film adaptation of the book No Night is Too Long, and I really, really enjoyed that. I really like how she explores sort of the psychology of her characters, and she really delves into that whole kind of psychosexual stuff and like the mental. She really gets into her characters' heads and like she gets into sort of why they commit these crimes, like psychologically, that kind of thing. She's very much a character focused author. It's not so much about the mystery; it's more about the pathology of the characters and that kind of thing. And again, this is one of her more well regarded novels. I know Pedro Almodovar actually made this into a film in the 90s. I don't know how faithful it is, but yeah, don't know. We'll see. It's about a young policeman who's released uh, from prison after 10 years for a shooting and has to kind of make a new life for himself and gets involved with the policeman that he shot and the policeman's girlfriend. It sounds very twisted and crazy. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what those are like. I like Ruth Rendell a lot, so I'm sure that'll be good. So next we have another one from the library. This is Mortal Engines by Stanislaw Lem. Electronic Escapades in the Land of Tomorrow. And that is just the most 70s cover you've ever seen, isn't it? In fact, this has to have been published in the 70s. 1977. See, I was right. Yeah, Stanislaw Lem, again, a Polish sci-fi author, very famous. He wrote Solaris and the Siberiad, and very, very influential Eastern European sci-fi author. And this is a collection of his short stories. 14 stories of machines that think. I mean, Stanislaw Lem, well-respected sci-fi author, writing stories about machines and artificial intelligence and stuff. I mean, how could you resist? In fact, Laura, I'm sure you're going to want to borrow this. Yeah, once I read it, I'll let you know how it is. I love robots and artificial intelligence and all that stuff. So yeah, we'll see what that's like. I'm sure it'll be great. Next, we have one of the ones I got from the horror section at Recycle Books. This is Nightwing by Martin Cruz Smith. This is about killer bats. That's literally all you need to know about it. Although Martin Cruz Smith, interestingly, he's more known for his crime novels like Gorky Park and stuff like that. But this is one of his few delvings into sort of paperback horror. And in fact, this is pretty well regarded. In fact, this was actually re-released as a paperback from hell by Valancourt Books. I couldn't remember if I owned that one. I don't think I did, so I bought this. It was only $3. So if I do own it, I can just either sell this or whatever, you know. So yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about this. It's about killer bats. Sounds like fun. Who knows? We'll see. Don't know. And it says soon to be a major motion picture on the back of this, but I don't know if this was ever made into a movie. In fact, I'll have to look that up later and I'll put it up somewhere. So yeah, killer bats. What more do you need to know? We have a few children's novels I bought here. Two of them are from Diana Wynne Jones, who I've been meaning to read more of. You know, Howl's Moving Castle, all that stuff. This is A Tale of Time City by Diana Wynne Jones. It's literally Time City, built far in the future on a patch of space outside time, holds the formidable task of overseeing history, yet it's starting to decay. So, I mean, yeah, I'm good enough for that, you know. I love this kind of like British sort of fantastical kind of it's considered children's fantasy, but it can kind of appeal to anybody, you know. I love Neil Gaiman for that same reason. In fact, Neil Gaiman was friends with her. And I think she based one of her characters off of him. So yeah, I'm sure I'll really enjoy that. Looking forward to you guys know me. I love good sort of children's fantasy type stuff. I've got another one here that I've been wanting to read for a long time. This is Dog's Body, which has an introduction by Neil Gaiman. This is literally about the dog star Sirius is tried and found guilty by his heavenly peers for a murder he did not commit. His sentence to live on the planet Earth as a dog until such time as he can carry out a seemingly impossible mission, the recovery of a deadly weapon known as the Zoe. So yeah, it's about, you know, this powerful sort of dog star spirit that gets sent to Earth to live as a dog and has to learn how to live as a dog while also trying to solve this, you know, incredible thing. Sounds like a lot of fun. And this is also one of her earlier ones, I believe, 1975, I think is when this came out. Again, it's like it's that cosmic, mystical fantasy, where like you have like stars that are personified, that type of stuff. I really love that type of thing. So yeah, looking forward to that. Another British fantasy book, classic here, children's book. This is The Borrowers by Mary Norton. This is the original Borrowers. I think they had some of the sequels there, but I didn't know what order they went in, and I figured I would just try the first one, see if I liked it. So of course I know the story of The Borrowers. I saw the '90s movie when that came out with John Goodman, which I don't think had much relation to the book. But I saw Arrietty as well, the Studio Ghibli adaptation, and I really really liked that. And from what I understand, like it's pretty much the same story. So if they have that same kind of vibe, I'm into it. And again, it's that classic cozy British children's fantasy. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. So yeah, really looking forward to that. See how that is. Another children's novel here. This one is newer. This is from like 2018, I believe. This is Small Spaces by Catherine Arden, who's the author of Bear and the Nightingale, which is a fantasy book, and I think it's a series now actually that I've heard a lot about. But I didn't know she wrote children's horror. And I actually found this on a recommendation when I was looking up recommendations for children's horror books because I love children's horror. I read a bunch of Mary Downing Hahn last year and stuff like that. And this is about a girl who finds like this creepy book called Small Spaces, and she ends up going to on a school trip to this local farm where it looks like there's some creepy scarecrow action going on. I'm here for it. Love that stuff. Yeah, we'll see what that's like. And I think this is also a series as well. I think there's like 4 books in this so far. So if I like that, then I'll definitely check out the others. And then this was the book that I got from the mystery box at the blind date with a book mystery thing at Barnes and Noble. This is Craven Manor by Darcy Coates. I don't know what to say about Darcy Coates that hasn't already been said on BookTube. She's a very well-known author. People tend to kind of categorize her as a sort of cozy horror, in that she writes very kind of tropey stories, typically about hauntings and things like that. But it's in that very kind of like campfire tale kind of mode, where it's like what it is, what it's going to give you, and that's where that kind of the comfort comes from, if that makes sense. Just a lot of classic style ghost stories, and this doesn't sound any different. It's about a guy named Daniel who gets a job offer to be a caretaker to this mysterious place called Craven Manor, and creepy things start happening. So yeah, I have a few Darcy Coates books. I haven't read any of them yet so far, but I really want to. I might start with this one actually because the protagonist in this one seems really interesting. I think most of her protagonists are women, if I believe, if I recall correctly. But this is one of her few with a male protagonist, and I don't know, he sounds kind of cute. He sounds like a shy boy, who's like investigating ghosts. I don't know, maybe that's just me reading into it, but we'll see. So yeah, Craven Manor by Darcy Coates. Then we've got my final pile here. I've got a lot of books. I think I had a total of 31 books. I'll put up a picture. You can see the whole haul. So yeah, this is the final pile. I got a bunch more Clifford Samac. I've been enjoying City so much, and I have a copy of Waystation that I got last time I did my B Street Books haul. And they had a bunch more Clifford Samac at B Street Books when I went back there, which is where some of these are from, and some of them are from recycle books. So yeah, let's start. First, I have Highway to Eternity by Clifford D. Samac. This is a Del Rey book from the '80s. They were refugees from the far future fleeing the dread gift of immortality. So it's exactly what it sounds like. It's about this guy finds a box where he can travel back in time to 1745 England, where there's a family of refugees from a million years in the future. In that far future, alien infinites were converting humanity to incorporeal form. It sounds really strange and bizarre and sort of transhumanist, as a lot of his stuff seems to be. I think most of these are sort of later novels of his from the early '80s, I believe. So I don't know kind of how his later novels are considered. I know like everybody loves City and Waystation; those won awards and stuff, but I haven't heard anything about these. Don't know if they're any good or not. But like I said, I'm enjoying City so much that I want to check out more of his stuff. So there's that. Then I have this one, which I love the cover for. This is Project Pope. This is literally on the back it says Vatican 17. On the rim planet fittingly called the end of everything, a bizarre society of robots and humans toiled for 1,000 years to perfect a religion that would create a new and all-embracing faith. No novelty in a galaxy crowded with religions, but one project was hidden from the hordes of pilgrims welcomed at Vatican 17. Robots and religion, I don't know. It sounds really interesting. You got some robot priests there. I don't know. It sounds bizarre and yeah, I don't know. We'll see. This one, I believe, is a slightly older one. Yeah, 1967. So this is a slightly older one. This is Why Call Them Back from Heaven? This deals with this place called the Forever Center, to come back to life and never die again. That's what the Forever Center promises the human race. And that's why in the year 2148, people live in poverty, giving all their money to Forever Center to ensure their happiness and comfort in the next eternal life. But I guess it deals with, sort of corruption and sort of the trickery that arises out of that. Don't know. But again, Clifford D. Samac seems to deal with immortality a lot in his books. He talks about that a little bit in City and stuff like that. So I don't know. We'll see. And that cover art made me laugh. Look at this guy. Hmm. He's just having a great time, isn't he? Last Clifford Samac. This is the one I got from Recycle Books. One guess why I bought it. This is The Werewolf Principle by Clifford D. Samac. So I don't think it literally is about a werewolf, but it's about a guy who has, I think he has two alien species inside of him, and they're kind of like fighting for dominance. And I believe one of the alien creatures is described as like being like a werewolf. So that's where this comes from. Two big voluminous guesses. So this is but this actually did sound interesting. This is To the Land of the Living, and this is sort of this is inspired by it's kind of a sequel of sorts to the Epic of Gilgamesh, where Gilgamesh was a Mesopotamian king who desired immortality, and he went on this whole quest for it. Um, but this deals with Gilgamesh going to the afterworld or being sent there or something, and then kind of going on an adventure in the afterlife. Trying to find his pal Enkidu and all that stuff. I don't know. It sounded really interesting, and I like the way they depict Gilgamesh on the cover. So that's really all I needed to know. Next, we have another one I've never heard of, "Prison Ship" by Michael Bowers. It literally is exactly what it says. It's about a disgraced officer who gets framed for a crime and sent to this prison ship where he's forced to kind of command it and stuff. I've never read anything like I like I've read like things with prison ships, but nothing with that kind of. It's like a prison novel or a prison story in space, and I've never read anything like that as far as I'm aware. And I don't know, the main character looks like a big military daddy, so we'll see how that turns out. Yeah, never heard of this, but again, this is one of the ones from the library. 50 cents, why not? And then finally, this is the final one that I also got from the library. Oh, there's a card inside of it. Card Lords, World of Warcraft TCG Sales and Trades. I don't even know if this business is still around, but if you guys want some of those, then there you go. Look that up. So yeah, this is Hammered by Elizabeth Bear. Elizabeth Bear is a very famous author. Again, she wrote quite a few things. I'd have to look them up. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I've got a few of her other books. She's married to Scott Lynch. I know that, and she herself is a famous sci-fi and fantasy author in her own right. She wrote a bunch of gay stuff. As I know, she wrote some stuff with. She goes by the name Catherine Addison. She wrote the Goblin and the Emperor, but she wrote under a different name as well. I'll put it up on the screen. But I believe this was Elizabeth Bear's first novel, Hammered, which is sort of a cyberpunk type of thing about a Canadian Special Forces warrior named Jenny Casey who lives on the hellish streets of Hartford, Connecticut in the year 2062. And yeah, there's like, sort of, sci-fi, cyberpunky kind of stuff. I think there's some stuff involving like cybernetics and things like that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm interested, and I think there's some sequels to this. I love cyberpunk. I'm always down for it. And Elizabeth Bear is an author I've heard a lot about, so we'll see what that's like. And with that, that is my final book from this haul, this big uh, San Jose bookstore crawl. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, thank you, Laura and Nakia, for coming with me on this trip. Thank you, Court, for giving us the discount for our hotel. Thank you, Aaron, for allowing me to buy all these things. I had a great time. I hope we get to do it again next year. I can't wait, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Have you read any of these books? Have you read any of these authors? Where would you recommend I start? Leave a comment. Let me know. And if you like and subscribe. This is my bread and butter. I talk all about vintage sci-fi and fantasy for the most part. So if you're into that, like and subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff. But until then, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.